Well, it's a warm welcome to Scott's Precision Manufacturing. Derek Scott. Very warm day actually for this job. I want to talk to you about our range of Microlift windrowers. Okay, so we've been producing them quite a number of years, but this is our first opportunity really to explain in detail all the ins and outs of what is quite a versatile machine. And we've been producing it since around about 2006 in quite a large range of crops. It's been developed and improved really off the back of such a lot of input from our own customers. So great opportunity today. We've got two machines going out actually to the same customer, going down to Suffolk, lifting onions. So we're just picking up a planted crop with a rotating bar, with the baffle in the front there, picking those onions up. What these machines particularly can do is either windrow to the left or to the right, or if you want, we can hydraulically fold the elevator up or the cross conveyor up and deliver that crop directly behind the machine. Now what we've really focused on is producing a do-all chassis. So the chassis is built as strong as it needs to be for the flower bulb job, which is the hardest job by far it has to do. But it allows us to bolt on to a very, very strong chassis, whatever extras we need, whether that be cross conveyors, cart elevators, steering, agitators, or anything like that as well. So the idea is we're providing a machine or literally a canvas for you to put on what you want to give you the best machine possible, but specifically for what you want that to do. Okay, so let's walk you around. I'm going to show you piece by piece each individual part of the machine and the options, why we've built and why it's got the strength that it has, and how we've made things adjustable. So we'll take you for a walk round, enjoy the journey, and we're always here to give us a call if I can't answer your questions on the video. Thank you. It makes sense to start at the front of the machine, and of course when we were looking at building these machines in the first instance, we really looked at the competition and, you know, what do we have to compete against, what's going to allow us to deliver a better machine, where are the weaknesses and so on. And certainly without doubt one of the biggest problems we saw was the strength of the machines, especially around the headstock area. The vast majority of these small windrow machines are built for light soils really, perhaps on the Dutch polders, those sort of areas. Fine for that sort of conditions. UK is quite different, and certainly if you're on stiffer soils, we absolutely rely on the headstock to give us the strength, and everything then attaches to that and gives strengths everywhere else on the machine as well. So that's really, really important. So we use 150mm square by 8mm wall box section. So that's a substantial piece of steel. And what we really like about that is there's literally no twisting moment in the box section. So when we look at disc assemblies, which you can move on to, we get a much bigger contact area to bolt to. So we don't get any flexing or any load put on there as well. So I'll move you on to the disc assembly. So just to take you down here and show you why we do what we do. Most of our competition will just run quite a small disc and rigidly fixed. Some will be floating and sprung loaded, but the majority are rigid, quite cheaply made to be fair, because they don't do much of a job. So we've gone up quite a big level with this one. So we've gone for something much more in keeping with the potato harvester. So we've gone for really quite a big diameter. So a big diameter means easy turning. What it also does is there's more of the disc going in the same direction as the crop and the soil. So instead of getting a churning effect on the small, as you would with a small disc, our one helps move the crop up onto the web as well. So very important in potatoes, less important on onions and discs, on onions and smaller crops and what have you. But the bigger that disc, the easier it turns, and the better job in terms of getting flow up the machine as well. Ours are sprung loaded and adjustable. So we have a torsion block within the design that runs through an arm and an adjuster down to the actual trailing arm. So the arm itself is loaded here from the torsion block, pulling it up. We've got a pivot point here that's adjustable backwards and forwards, so we can put that disc into lots of different positions depending on what we're doing. And we've got a separate hub, standard hub that's off the shelf with taper roller bearings in there as well. So it's built for a particularly tough job, which and mainly bulbs and potatoes are those tough jobs, but we get that on the onion lifter as well. So we get that strength and reliability and endurance out of that design for that side as well. So while we're down here at the front, 3-point linkage, as you can see, we run 4 positions for the lower link arms to suit all the variety of tractors that we have out there, and then again run 2 slots in the top link. These are always floating because we actually run the weight of the machine on the rear wheels and just pull with the lower arms. The top link should then be floating as you go through your contours. So that's how we do that. Everything tied back to the back of the chassis there, so that encompasses all the strength into the monocoque chassis design that we have. Just while we're leaning against them, and it's a nice touch that it's a pity more manufacturers don't do this really. So we always have hydraulics on field machinery. For us, anything just to help the operator is important. So colour coding for each service. One last thing at the front end here we can talk about is the PTO drive. So we run a manual PTO drive with a slip clutch straight under the chassis there with a short PTO. That feeds back to the T-box at the rear here, runs at 90 degrees and takes the drive to the side of the machine, where it then becomes a chain drive to drive the intake web, and that's 1-inch chain with an adjuster there as well. Thereafter we have a second web. I'll talk to you about that in a moment, but that can be optionally hydraulically driven, or it can be chain driven from the first web back to the second web. So that's the front end. We'll move around the side and we'll get on to the next bit. Okay, so moving down the machine, we just mentioned briefly about the transmission. You see from where we stood here, we've got the PTO coming in at the front to a T-box and a drive across to inside the machine. So the way the machine's designed is a monocoque chassis. So really there's no structural steel in the machine at all. It's all about the shape, a bit like how you'd produce a car really. We've created a shape by putting 2 halves together to give us the strength, and that void is where we put all the transmission, the adjustments and the hydraulics in. So it keeps a very nice neat lines to the machine, keeps the dust out of the way as well, so not a bad thing. So as you can see, the big grey guards left and right open the whole of the machine up. So let's whip the guards up, see what we need to show you. So while we're in here, we'll have a little talk about rotating bars. So what we have on onions, and it's a popular option especially on sandy soils, rather than using a share, and we do offer a huge range of shares, from a small multi-blade share for digging direct under onions. We also do potato shares, a very conventional arrangement, 2 blades. We do a centre share as well, and we also do a bulb shares, which are narrower and slightly longer and very strong in actual fact for the bulb job, because of its such tough conditions in bulb lifting, as we know. So this one's equipped with a rotating bar, and to drive that we have a pillar block bearing down in the bottom. We run a 35mm RHP bearing unit, as good as we can buy, with extra sealing on the bearing, driven with a chain drive and a spring tensioner. So really we can just forget about that. Apart from oiling the chain on a regular occasion, as you do, that's pretty much looks after itself. Another important part of it is this, we call it the shoe. Now what that is, it's a 10mm plate, quite a complex design as it's turned out, but that wraps around the front of the sprocket and the bearing, and that's going to take whatever you can throw at it. So if you're on de-stoned beds and there's some stone coming through, or you're on bulbs where they've been down for a number of years, that's going to take the pounding. Eventually it will wear away and we do a replacement part, but that's there to give us all of that protection. Okay, so just moving back a little bit and talk to you a little bit about the share, just briefly. We'll show you in another video how that share is assembled, and some information on that as well that will pop up during this video. And that's where the share bolts onto. So we have a much stronger plate welded to the inner panel of the machine. Again, that's a 10mm plate, and we have a quick release system that the share goes onto there. And the idea is we can literally slide the share underneath, jack it up and put a pin through, no spanners, off we go. So that's quite a nice neat on and off arrangement we can do there. We often have customers that will want to run a rotating bar, and then maybe a month later they'll want to run a share, and you can use the same machine for both. We can swap those units over. But as I say, we'll show you a little bit more in the video of how that share assembly sits and how that looks. Okay, so not much to show you in this back of the machine now, obviously, but we'll take you around the other side and we'll show you what's going on with the hydraulics. Okay, so what we've got here is our upgrade to a hydraulically driven web. Now the way we do that one, again, we don't run chains and sprockets in any way. We run a right angle gearbox, quite a heavy duty unit that slides over the top of the drive shaft, web drive shaft, with its hydraulic motor on there, and obviously that's hydraulic driven as well. And that completes really the motor circuit on this particular machine. So what we will do is talk quite in detail with the buyer or the operator, just to kind of understand what capacity they've got from their host tractor. So not everybody will have 4 services, like some may have 3 or 2 or even 1. But what we can do, we can give you a solution of bringing all of that control within the machine. So if you've just got a simple flow and return, we can use valving within the machine, quite simple, to adjust speeds and so on for all of the different options that we may have in here. So today we've just got for the web and for the agitator. So that'll be these two are going to be controlled by a single flow adjuster. The tractor flow itself will control the web speed. The second flow control valve will control the agitator. So that's manual adjustment, and again we keep that all out of trouble and out of sight there, out of a bad environment inside the machine. Okay, so also while we're underneath this guard here, I just want to talk to you about agitators. So I mentioned here we've got an hydraulic agitator that's rotating, but what we also do, rather than just rely on the speed of the agitator to vary the aggression, we can actually lift the web up and down from the rotating agitator. So there'll be a picture comes up in a moment showing you what that looks like, but we run a 3-roller agitator that rotates. We vary the speed to it, and then what this turnbuckle does, as we adjust it up and down, it lifts the web away from or lower to the agitator. And the idea of that is really for conditions, and it makes a huge difference. So we're in a situation where there's a huge amount of wet, heavy soil, and it needs a large movement to break up that row and get that row breaking up and the soil sieving through. Then we want a big movement on the agitator. So at that point we'd lower the web down onto the agitator so we get a big kick on every one. So we may not run the agitator that fast, but we'll give it a big linear movement. Now the opposite to that is where there's perhaps less on the web, but it's quite soft, and that clod will shatter, and especially soft soil mixed with stone. And what we'll do there is we'll adjust the web partly off the agitator. So in actual fact, when the rollers come round, 3 on a bracket, they're just getting a very small tap. But if we increase the RPM of the agitator, so it's very high, we get a very high vibration on the web itself. So it's actually not moving the crop up and down, but it's just shattering what's on the web, and it sieves out amazingly well. And that's not to be underrated. Okay, right, we're looking above the machine to show you what's going on there. Right, so back into the mouth of the machine really here. So traditionally that would be a rigid fixed shaft with some flaps on there, paddling the stuff around, just doing its thing. So we've gone another step with this one, and the reason we have is because we don't always get a level bed of onions or bulbs or whatever it may be. Sometimes for whatever reason, as they've been digging, they've stopped momentarily and there's a big old pile of onions sat there, and that more often than not chokes the machine up, so it can't physically take them through, or it just loses crop around the outside of the machine. So what we need is that baffle to follow the contour of that bed of onions, especially when you're picking them up the second time. So what we've done is we've got an arm, again a gearbox and motor similar to what we use for the hydraulic web drive, pivots at the back here, and then it's supported by an adjustable spring. So as you can see, I can just literally pick that up. It sits in its correct position, but I can adjust that spring, so as I come over a large pile of onions or bulbs, that's going to be able to move up. It will in fact twist as well. So there's no chains and sprockets, nothing to go wrong, and that will follow the crop really well. It's been a really popular upgrade, and we seem to be fitting these on everything that we supply these days. So again, hydraulically driven. This customer's happy for it to be driven straight from the tractor spool, which we do. Again, we could link it into the circuit we've got in the machine on the side there as well if we needed to. So loads of options hydraulically, but a lovely little adaptation there that works really well. Practically a really nice, neat thing to do. If you want to remove it, take the spring off, take the bolt off, it's gone. It's a very, very simple unit, self-contained unit that just comes straight off. So you could literally, in theory, just take that off, drop your rotating bar off, put your quick release shears on, go digging. Nice, simple, strong, quick and easy to do. Okay, right, we'll talk to you really about the most serious attachment on these windrows that we do, and it really is a bespoke design for us at Scott's. And this is the option to have a cross conveyor to be able to move the crop from the bed you're lifting and double that up to the bed adjacent to you. We all know the ideas and the reasons for that, just to bring more crop into a single area, opens the space up for running trailers, and it allows the harvester to pick up twice as much crop, and we just get the trailers filled much quicker. So it's a really popular idea. Nothing clever to be said. You would say, well, yeah, lots of machines out there doing pretty much the same old idea that I've done for years with a conventional continental web on there. So we've gone another step with this one. So as you can see, we're quite a bit bigger on terms of width of our cross conveyor web, but more importantly, it's really about the weight and the way that it works. So what we have with this one is 2 side belts. As you can see, we run active fingers, which are really important, we believe. And what that means is we have no dead area where the crop sits at the side. So without the active fingers that move with the web, you're going to have literally a piece of steel or a side panel there with the belt coming past it. And there is always a risk of the crop just rubbing against that steel work. It's a wearing part, it's horn, especially in a potato crop, or even a bulb crop. Any leaf and horn can get stuck underneath these side panels, whereas the whole active panel idea with its pockets literally just carry everything away. So it simplifies our engineering, so we've got less pieces of metal, less things wearing out, and it's far gentler with a crop as well. So it's a lovely idea, specifically on potatoes, very, very much in potatoes, but certainly it's a big advantage in the bulb job, and we bring that to the onion spec as well. So we have the standard system that works for everybody, and everybody gets the advantages of that. Obviously, when we put this conveyor in, we've got to get the crop that little bit further into the conveyor. So we have an extra transfer roller on here, driven from the main web. And what that does, it just gets the crop over the dead area where the side belt is, presents it onto the conveyor. So that works really quite well. Lots more going on with this cross conveyor. As you can see from the ram just here, we've got some ability to traverse this conveyor. So although we shouldn't be too far out with the machine being rigidly mounted behind the tractor in terms of distance from the next bed, you know, we're not steering, but there's always a need to fine tune the discharge point of the conveyor. So we've got on here, I believe, about 600 millimeters, 500 to 600 millimeters of traverse on the ram, and that's enough to put the crop exactly where you want it to be. The other beauty of this little web is we can run it in both directions, so we don't have a drop flap. With that in mind, it doesn't matter which direction we run this web, because we haven't got any issue to have to drop stones out or soil because it's a sealed web. We run them on finger rollers, so a nice positive drive there, twin motors that are hydraulically linked in series. And as you can see on this one, we can adjust the angle on the end of the cross conveyors as well. Generally for onions, a little bit higher up just to throw the crop a bit if we need to. Certainly in potatoes, we want to be running this nice and low as well. And we're mindful of that with the length of the finger. It's a relatively short finger, so we can actually get that as close to the top of the potato row as possible to get the gentlest drop. But there is another trick in the book with this one. which is unique to our machinery, and that is the ability to then fold this up out of work and be able to drop the crop directly behind the machine. So the way that works is we have the two hydraulic rams, as you can see on the top of the machine. The whole of the rear end, if you like, pivots on this pin just here. So what we can do when we want to go away from putting two into one is simply just power the two rams up. That's all we need to do, and that will fold that machine up into a 90-degree position, which we can see on the other machine here next to us. So now we're into the direct lifting or direct discharge setup for the same machine. So as we discussed at the back there, we've powered the hydraulic rams up, the whole of the rear unit folds up, as you can see, and then we've got the little safety valves on there just to lock that off, to just keep everything in place. And obviously if we're working underneath there, we just want that security to know that it's all safe, one on each ram. So we've only really got one more job to do. We appreciate we can't do it all from the cab, but really the very few seconds that it takes to drop off the deflector that mounts on the back of the unit there and just to put it in its new position is really just a matter of seconds really. No nuts and bolts, no spanners, it's just quick release pins. We slide the two halves on, they just pin in. These are actually, we just put a little bit more thought into these. They're actually adjustable for height and for angle, and they are able to break away should they dig in the ground, so they actually do pivot away as well. So that's quite a nice little touch on there that just makes it all quite nice and easy. So as you can see, if I walk round to the back here, we can actually do another trick more than just folding it up. Now we're well aware that certainly in bulb growing areas, especially down in Cornwall for instance, where the roads are very narrow, really we want to keep everything within the width of the tractor tyres. We can in fact do this. Although we've got a near 3 metre wide cross conveyor when it's in its working position, because we can fold it up to 90 degrees, it then allows us within the design literally just to pull a pin on the turnbuckle that adjusts the tip end. So we can just pull that pin. There's no weight in the machine at all because everything's now vertical, and we can just swing in these two tip ends, pin in the new position, and then we're nice and safe. And I do know that's quite an advantage in certain areas, especially where it's very tight access, lots of holiday traffic in the middle of summer when we're lifting flower bulbs and whatnot. So you may not need to do that every time, and maybe you can just run around with a conveyor fully out. It's not a problem. It just didn't take us very much more thinking to give you that for free in a way. So that's a nice neat little touch, which I know some people will find that really helpful as well. So we've got a couple more things to mention just while we're sat at the back of the machine here. So we'll have a look under here. Okay, so underneath the machine, into all the nitty gritty of it really, and where the important stuff happens, because this is all preparing the bed. So as you can see in the back here, we've got some support wheels. So the machine runs on these particular wheels. It's got all the weight on them. We can also offer under here a packer roller, and again there's an improvement on that idea that we've managed to bring to the market, and that is, rather than just having a rigid stainless steel packer roller that just takes all the weight of the machine, we can actually offer that as a floating option as well. So what we find is where the ground can be really quite soft, or we're mindful that we're putting too much pressure on the lifted bed, we can in fact adjust the wheels individually on each side. You can see the range of holes there. We can just move the wheels up or down, and so what that will do is we can share some of the weight on the wheels and some of the weight on the packer roller. But the packer roller is actually sprung loaded and will float up and down and can adjust its angle a wee bit as well. So that just helps it turn when it's if in a situation with possibly wet sand, the roller's not turning ever so well. That just relieves too much pressure, so it's not trying to bulldoze. So that's a little option we do. There's some information there you can see, and that will just give you another twist and give you another ability to avoid those bungs and stops, so you can just keep up and down flowing away with your lifting. While we're under here, just to show you the stub axles, they're removable on the studs, 50mm square stub axles, strongest on the market. And then this is just a new idea that we've come up with for a particular customer. What he's looking for, he has a terrific amount of trouble with birds dragging crop out of the windrow. It's not an uncommon problem anywhere in the world really, and to reduce that problem we've got some sprung loaded and adjustable discs that mount onto this common beam with a radius adjuster, and what that will do, the little concave disc, is just going to peel a little bit of soil up and leave a slight ridge either side of the windrow, and obviously that's just to stop the crop rolling away and being dragged out by birds and vermin and whatnot. So a few neat things going on under here. You can see the strength that we put into stuff. Everything's built to last. We appreciate not every operator is as gentle as the other one, so machines getting slammed down on the lift too quickly. These don't bend. We've done a proper job, so we'll look elsewhere. Well, we'll kind of continue around to show all the other options that we do. There's still more besides that are on this machine, but one very simple but quite a nice little neat and easy thing for us to do, and it's about preparing that bed of soil the best we can. And what we do find is, especially if we're digging with shares, that we get a really uneven amount of soil dropping through the webs. So what that gives us is dips and hollows where the windrow crop sits on. So really, just to help that along, it's as easy as a bit of 40mm square solid bar in a chevron, chain each side, little deflector and another chain at the back to stop it from swinging around. And what that does, it just drags along the top of the soil, takes all the high points off and fills the low points. It's as complicated as that. And really what we're especially trying to do in onions, but very much so in the bulb job, is just get the perfect bed. It's so important that we dig every bulb, we dig the least amount of soil that we need to, and that we present that bed as smooth and flat as we possibly can. So these little adaptations just give us that bit extra edge over the competition. So that covers that part of the machine. Okay, so I'm hoping the video's been useful for you. We'll be putting more videos up online, tutorials about to set these machines up and whatnot. We like to think we've done a really versatile machine. We haven't finished on developing. There's always going to be another attachment or some improvement we can make, and we always like good feedback. But great machine. We designed it in the UK, built in the UK, and supported all the way through. So thanks for having a look. All the contact details will come up on the screen. You can email and text or anything you need just to get hold of us. But thanks for having a look, and give us a shout if you need us. Thank you.